an automated message from Elections Canada. Due to a projected increase in voter turnout, your polling location has been changed. Your new voting location is at the old Quebec Street Mall at 55 Linden Street North. Once again, your new poll location is the old Quebec Street Mall at 55 Linden Street North. If you have any questions, please call our hotline at 1-800-434-4456. We apologize for any inconvenience that this may cause.
My name is John Porsley. I was one of the organisers here of the event, and we brought together in about 10 days. My personal opinion is that this has to be non-political with respect to party politics. And I'm trained as an engineer. I run a company called Chessman Media Group in transparency and management systems. So how to set stuff up is all in my training in that, and that's why I know what's going on now has really been screwed up. We have to address the real problems with the overall voting system.
What are your thoughts on the Robocalls scandal?
I think it's disgusting. I think it's probably even far wider spread than people realise, because people don't connect the dots when you get an odd call. It's only when other people start saying, oh, I had the same thing. So I think basically we're going to end up with a lot more people when they think about it. Well, I got a call as well. Like I had two friends I was talking to the other day. I was organising this rally, and they said, no, I got a call, but they both voted, so they dismissed it. One was in Oshawa, and one was in the West End where Gerard Kennedy was. It was only afterwards, in talking to me, they said, well, you know what, I got one, they voted and they dismissed it. But I think it is terrible, if somebody's masterminded it somewhere, eating away our democracy. The fact that we had such a low voter turnout is really horrendous. The fact that around 20% of the overall population only voted for the government we got. The fact that only 26% approximately of the eligible electorate voted for the government we've got now is not about democracy. It goes, and they're acting as if they got carte blanche to do what they like, and it's more going into what I class as a dictatorship.
What are your thoughts about the turnout today?
Oh, it was great. I wish we'd had 10,000 there, but we probably had about 2,500 actually.
Where do we go from here?
We're going to organise more rallies. The object of this, and my whole object of speaking to people and being as active as I am and stuff, is about empowering people and making people realise their vote does count. It's like every penny makes a pound, and every vote makes a good democracy, and everybody's vote does count. If you don't vote, you're actually giving the other side, as it were, two votes. So we've got to re-empower, especially young people, make them realise their vote does count, and then we end up with a government that is more responsible and more progressive, because there's only a certain number that are going to be extreme on any one side, and if you get everybody, then you get the balance. You end up with a spectrum of people which is balanced from end to end.
Do you think we're going into an election, and if so, what do you think Elections Canada should do?
Well, they need to sit down and sort out where the problems really are, and we need by-elections in certain places. I'm probably 95% convinced we need by-elections in some places, because, especially with Eglinton Lawrence, with the number of people that were last-minute voters and with false, bogus addresses, and if you put together with people that might have got calls or a whole load of other stuff, then that's a case that it's a swing riding in that case. And I think we need to look very carefully. If you've got a riding where somebody won by 50,000 votes, then that's not going to be effective. But where there's stuff that even up to maybe 10,000 votes, looking at how many people turned up, that had bogus addresses at the Eglinton Lawrence, it should be in that, but where you've got something that's in the hundreds, definitely it needs to be, and hopefully then we get, a bigger turnout of people, and then it will be a more democratic answer for the election, as opposed to people thinking their vote doesn't count. So just remember, who's ever listening to this, if you see this, your vote does count. Trust me, your vote counts unbelievably. Every dollar's made of 100 pennies, remember that, and a democracy's vote ends up with everybody
coming to Dundas Square today for this protest. We have right now a clipboard that's going around, that's being passed among you to sign. It's a petition to ask for an inquiry and for a new election. That's what we're looking for, ladies and gentlemen. A public inquiry, an investigation into robocalls. As you may have heard before, I'm going to say it again, over 30,000 complaints into Elections Canada. People were called and asked to go to polling stations, and when they got there, they didn't get a chance to vote. The polling station didn't exist. They were sent to a P.O. Box mail address. These are sneaky weasel tactics and should not be tolerated by anybody, especially what's going on with society today around this world. We live in a great country with a great democracy. We're all free to do what we want. A lot of people took their free time to be here this afternoon and took the time to make the signs. I see amazing signs. Look at everybody's signs who took the time to do it. A lot of people brought their flags. You came out. We also would like to thank the media because we know that it's very important to get the word across. So thank you to the cameramen for coming here today. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause to the media and the cameramen. Because without them, none of this would be captured. This would not get on television. The cameramen are here to capture all this, to present it to their offices, to get the editors to put it together, make it look really sharp, edit all our conversation down to a 30-second soundbite.
Megwit, Salam alaikum, good afternoon. This is about Canada. This is about the greater good. I disagree, and we've had our disagreements, as all groups do, that we shouldn't be talking about politics. This is not about politics. This is about our country. This is about Canada. This is not about Parliament or politicians. I argued vehemently with John, and we had really good arguments. We should not, and it's my fault that no politicians are up here. If you blame it as a fault. But this is because this is way above politics. This is the fundamental of the whole world. We've got the Arabic countries are dying for what we're giving away. My father fought in a war. I lost an uncle in the war. Many of you did here. And there's many people from different countries that have got friends that are dying today to stand up for democracy. We don't have to fight with guns, as this lady over here, she's disappeared, she's somewhere around, she's got "We Are the Resistance." We must be active in what we do and what we believe with non-violence. The object of today and my whole life is to try and empower people, not I'm perfect myself, but to give you and everybody might be watching and every Canadian the understanding that their vote counts. One vote multiplied by 30-odd million means something. And if you don't vote, you're giving 2 votes away. So remember, have pride in this country. Be proud as Canadians. And what we're doing is not politics, it's for the greater good of this country. And I don't care what colour, what religion, where you come from, what age you are. We are all Canadians and we'll stand up for it.
We're going to be marching in about 30 minutes to the cenotaph. The cenotaph, where our grandfathers, our fathers, our great-grandfathers fought authoritarianism. We're going to be going to the cenotaph at Old City Hall, a justice house, because we demand justice into our tainted election. C'est nécessaire qu'on ait de la justice parce que notre élection a été gagnée par la fraude. On a besoin d'une enquête maintenant. Mon français n'est pas parfait, je suis désolé, mais my French isn't perfect, so I'm just going to stop that. But listen. The fundamental right to vote is the cornerstone of Western democracy. Tell me, I want everybody to answer at the top of their lungs. Is it democratic to suppress the knowledge of somebody who wants to vote?
No!
Suppress their ability to vote?
No!
Is it democratic to pass laws that allow for warrantless spying regardless of who you are?
No!
Is it democratic to prorogue, suspend Parliament twice in 2 years in the face of opposition?
No!
I know that.
Is it democratic to launder money from one riding to another to unjustly fight a campaign against a weaker opponent, against the laws of our country?
No!
In case you don't know, I'm referring to the In-N-Out scandal. Is it democratic to say no to the people through their representatives in Parliament when they demand to see the funding of projects, including fighter bombers? And they say no to when people demand to see the funding, the budget, and the government says no. Is that democratic?
No!
In case you don't know, the government was held for contempt of Parliament for that last thing. The first government in the entire British Commonwealth to be charged, first government, the entire government, the first entire government to be charged with contempt of democracy, contempt of Parliament. Shame! We require an inquiry explaining how 6 million phone calls went out immediately leading up to the last election that lied to voters about where their voter booth was and pretended to be from Elections Canada, an independent agency outside of parties. Why did 6 million phone calls go out immediately beforehand through Rack 9 and RMG? We must know. Whoever engaged in their services, and it's apparent there was only one party that did it, whoever engaged those services to lie to voters must be held accountable and criminally charged, including the Prime Minister himself, if he is accountable. Have any of you, I want to see by a show of hands, how many of you are literally immigrants to this country? I'm just wondering. That's great. That's great. That's fantastic. How many of you who are immigrants to this country came to Canada for a better life that included a proper democracy? How many of your ancestors did? How many Native people who actually followed through with the, actually I'm part Algonquin, a small amount, and the Algonquin people used a democratic system, a council, going back in Canada hundreds of years. Democracy has been a cornerstone of this country, whether or not you're a citizen of the democratic state, or whether or not you're actually one of the peoples of Turtle Island, you know? The fact is that democracy is a fundamental tenet of being a Canadian. And to have that right, that right usurped is not right, and we must fight back peacefully, but we must fight back by sending messages to the Governor General, demanding the dissolution of Parliament, writing the letters to the editors, speaking out loud, Facebook, in person, not being afraid to stand up and say, look, enough is enough. We need a new election now. You cannot go around stepping on.
I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming out. These are the faces of true Canadians who care about the future of their democracy. This is a grass movement, and this is a grass movement across Canada. This is 30 major cities rising up. This is what democracy looks like. Show them what democracy looks like. what democracy looks like. Show them what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show them what democracy looks like. Absolutely, it's about being engaged. It's about calling for accountability with a con job government. We're not going to get conned any longer in Canada. We're not going to allow spying on Canadians with no warrants. We're going to defeat it. We're going to defeat unwarranted spying, and we're going to defeat the con job government. This was a systemic attack on Canadians' confidence to vote. 31,000 calls across Canada. These are robocalls that gave misinformation to Canadians to go to different polling stations. That's not just dirty tricks. That's a criminal offense under the Canadian Elections Act. This government wants to build super jails when crime rates are at their lowest point in 29 years. I think Harper and his bunch of con job allies need to go and see those jails first. Show me what election fraud looks like. And it's about keeping people accountable, especially in the highest points of government. And it's about calling for a full criminal investigation. This was 57 polling stations across Canada. 57 ridings. This is not just some simple dirty tricks. This was an attack on our fundamental right to vote in Canada. They misled people. They lied to people. They fraudulently took away their right to vote. And we cannot stand for it. Are we going to stand for it? Are we going to stand for it? Are we going to say enough's enough? Are we going to say enough is enough? And that's why we're here across Canada, 30 major cities, saying enough is enough. And it's about time Canadians are not apathetic any longer. It's about time we start raising up our voices. We have voices to speak. We have bodies to stand up, and we must use it. We got the charter rights and freedoms in this country. The right to speak out in a democracy, the freedom of assembly, and the freedom of speech. Those were violated at the G20 here in Toronto. The same people that put fences and divided people in this city between the 1% and the 99%. That's not democratic. They passed the Public Works Protection Act, an illegal law on Canadians, and they asked them to show identification or go to jail. Show me your papers or go to jail. What kind of Canadian democracy is that? These people do not work for us. Yeah, absolutely. You know, they are the minority, and we, the people, are the majority. That's the truth. We are the majority across this great country. And we gotta keep Canada great for the future of our children. And we cannot put up with the suppression and attack on our fundamental freedoms and our right to vote. Do you care about your future? Yes! Do you care about your right to vote? Yes! We're gonna show that we are not gonna be silent any longer. And that's why it's a beautiful day here in Toronto. It's a beautiful day across Canada. And we hope that this is the beginning of a Canadian spring. A cause for action. Yep, awesome. There may be a time where we fail to prevent injustice, but there may never be a time that we fail to protest. That's the staple of a democracy, is standing up and having your voices heard. No matter what they do to you, no matter if they attack you, you keep standing up. You know, they will use psychological tactics against us. They will try to threaten us if we go to a protest. They'll have surveillance on us. They'll try to prohibit you from going out to a protest and make you seem like a radical or an extremist. You know, this is a systemic attack on our democracy. And we are the majority once again. And let's continue our fight for our country, Canada. What do we want? And when do we want it? What do we want?
tell me who you are and what's been going on today.
My name is John Allen, and I'm the lead organizer of this rally, this Toronto rally against voter suppression and election fraud. There were 30 rallies that happened across Canada today, and this just happened to have the Toronto one, you know. And so we're here today to call for an independent parliamentary inquiry. We're here to call for a criminal investigation, full accountability. Number two, we need full accountability all the way up to and including the Prime Minister's office. And that includes the indictment of the Prime Minister himself if necessary. And thirdly, we'd like either the suspension of Parliament while an investigation occurs so that laws that may affect us, like Bill C-30, cannot be passed, and or just a brand new election right now, because the last election was tainted and therefore the results are illegitimate.
So where do we go? Where do we go from here?
My suggestion to people is to keep on talking about it. Do not let this get swept under the rug. Okay, the last election was stolen. Do not let this get swept under the rug. Okay, we can bet the farm that Mr. Conservatives did this honestly. All the evidence points to that. And we're still required to go through due process as a proper democracy. But a lot of the evidence is on the wall already. The other thing is that we need to write the governor, write the Governor General to ask him to dissolve Parliament. He has the constitutional authority to dissolve Parliament. So write him. We need a flood of letters going to him. Thirdly, we also need people to write letters to the editor. Let people know that this must not be forgotten. As soon as we create a precedent in our common law society, it may happen again. So we must keep at it, keep on hitting the streets if necessary. We're thinking about maybe in 2 weeks having another rally. So just keep at it. That's it. We have to keep the hope alive.
That's awesome. What do you have to say to the opposition parties like the NDP, the Bloc, the Liberals?
Hey, if you were involved, if the Bloc, the Liberals, the NDP were the ones responsible for the election fraud that occurred last year, you're going down. If it was the Conservatives, they're going down. No matter what, we will fight for justice for our democracy.
What can you say about the turnout today?
Turnout was fantastic. More than I could have even ever wanted. This is great. I mean, we had like 3,000 people. We had people all the way up to the cenotaph over there. If you just want to point the camera so they can see, this is the courthouse, the City Hall, the old City Hall courthouse. We're demanding justice at the courthouse by the cenotaph where our forefathers fought for democracy. This whole spot was filled with people when we first got here, and there were still people marching in the street. It was great. We had at least like 3,000 people, I would estimate, and it started to dwindle off. Obviously, it was a couple hours, but honestly, it was fantastic turnout. Yeah.
Awesome. What do you think about the media coverage today?
The media coverage was also really good. Actually, I'm very happy. Independent media has been here. I heard that Media Ranch is here. Also, CTV, CBC, Global. CP was doing stuff on their TV thing in advance of this to inform people. That's how a lot of people came out here. Also, radio interviews, this kind of thing. We really got a lot of coverage, and it was fantastic, thank God, because this is how the word will spread. But we have to make sure that the media knows that people are interested. Obviously, they care about advertising dollars, and what creates advertising dollars are stories that people read. So therefore, make sure that we read every article, and make sure that we write the letters to the editor, and make sure that people show that there's still an interest in this, that we're not just a sadly apathetic country.
What do you think this means for the Occupy movement in Canada?
For the Occupy movement, I think that this bodes well. Obviously, we need to mainstreamize Occupy. I support Occupy Toronto. I was down there often. I even spent a night there in a tent. Secondly, I'm also a moderator on Occupy Canada Facebook group, which has 36,000 plus people. But I did this independently. I did not do this as an Occupy Canada. I want to make that perfectly clear. I did this as an independent of Occupy of any organization. Okay? This is a citizens' grassroots movement right now to demand justice. As for Occupy itself, the fact is that we need to see Occupy at these kinds of mainstream events to help legitimize it in the eyes of the mainstream society that don't understand that we're not a bunch of radicals, It's just people looking for a better world with justice.
Any comments on the crime bill?
Bill C-30 crime bill or the omnibus bill?
The
crime bill C-30
or the surveillance?
Yeah, the surveillance one. Only authoritarian governments have something to hide. Let me say this. Bill C-30 will have it that the authorities can spy on every single Canadian through their cell phone, through their email, through their computer, right, without a warrant. That is so undemocratic. I mean, think about it. We have due process for a reason. We have due process for warrants as well. The government should not have more secrets than the people. The people should have the right to liberty and privacy. Okay, they do have that right to liberty and privacy. When the government has more access to our private lives and we have access to the government's information, transparency of the government, then that's a problem. The people must always have a greater access to right of privacy than the government. The government must remain accountable in a democratic society. The fact that they want to reverse that so that the government has more privacy and more secrets than the people is a huge problem. You know, we need to make sure that we understand that it should not be the other way around. People must have privacy. The government must be accountable and transparent, not the other way around.
Awesome. Do you think we're headed into an election? And if so, what do you think Elections Canada should do for anything forthcoming?
Well, I think Elections Canada should be forthright. Let's just say, listen, there was issues, we made a mistake, election results are invalid, new election now. It's as simple as that. If they had any legitimacy, any integrity, you know, they would do that. But I don't know, we'll see if it actually happens. We know that there's strings that pull certain agencies, so we don't know what's going to happen.
Any last thoughts and any message to the Conservatives?
Listen, Conservatives, I understand the idea of conserving the status quo, all right? A lot of people, no, I don't understand that, no. You know what, I don't understand the status quo. The status quo is a magnet for non-progress, hence conserving the status quo. No, we like progress. Listen, I'm telling you, open your eyes. We don't need to be, we're not all socialist communists. I have a small business, okay? But the idea of oppressing people's rights is wrong, okay? I'm not even referring to the election. The fact that the Conservatives suspended Parliament twice, right, in the face of opposition is undemocratic. The fact that you refused to divulge information on the cost of warplanes is undemocratic, and that's why you were charged with contempt of Parliament, which is a contempt of democracy. The fact that you shifted money through laundering, or whatever accounting term, you know, for the in and out scandal, right, so that you could unfairly fight other parties against the rules of the land is undemocratic, you know. The fact that all the evidence from this current election debacle, through the tainted election, through RMG, Rack 9, 6 million phone calls going out, specifically targeting, for the most part, Liberals and New Democrats. It's take a genius to put two and two together. That it was highly likely that the Conservatives were involved, of course. It's all alleged right now, but let's not kid ourselves.
Okay.
Now, have some integrity. Call a damn inquiry.